So I went to PAX Unplugged, and it wasn't just my first time at PAX, it was also, my first board game convention ever. And leading up to it, I tried to listen to all the advice people who, give tips for their first convention, and it was like, oh, be ready to say goodbye to your wallet because you're going to spend so much money, and make sure you check that extra bag so that you can fit all the games on the way back. And don't get me wrong, I had a great time, but I don't understand what all the fuss was. I mean, sure, I did go and come back with some excellent games. I got to go around and see some booths, meet some incredible people that I've only just heard about through the grapevine or online. Got to meet some of the coolest publishers that I've always wanted to see. But, it is PAX Unplugged, of course, right? Like, I feel like all of the big releases ended up coming out at Gen Con or maybe even at Spiel. It wasn't like there was going to be this mad dash every day to try and get that one game everybody's been talking about. All the games have kind of, been out for a while, and so I went in with tempered expectations, and I feel I came away with that. Yeah, I'm in danger. Welcome back to Get This Game, where we're all about the board gaming goodness. I'm Jake, and yes, I am indeed back from PAX Unplugged. An absolute whirlwind of a weekend. I feel like I could do all over again and not feel tired or regret anything at all. So that's why I'm here today. I want to talk a little bit about my experience, but mostly I want to talk about the huge influx of games that have now hit my collection, and I'm very concerned I'm never going to actually play because yeah, we came over with a haul, and sure enough, that suitcase by the end of it was full. The suitcase, as well as all of the carry-ons and even the personal items. Everything had games in it when all was said and done. First off, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the people that I had met at the convention that beforehand I had only ever conversed and interacted with online. People like Nicholas Sparkman, who you can find at Nicholas Sparkman on TikTok, Mondo Davis, a game designer and an influencer in his own right. Welcome to Boredom, Ascadelia from All Play, so many others that it was such a pleasure to finally kind of say hi to, spend some time with, have conversations. Tabletop Vibes too, can't forget about them. They're right here on YouTube, so make sure you give them a subscribe, absolutely. More on that later. But yeah, so coming away from the con, I definitely had some key takeaways, some key learnings, if you will. I want to talk about maybe just 3 quick things that I kind of learned and maybe would have done a little bit differently my next go around. So continue watching, and then of course you can also skip ahead to the influx of games that we're going to be talking about on the channel, on my TikTok, on my Instagram. So make sure you follow across the board, consider subscribing right here and turning on notifications so that you can see when my next video comes out. But with that being said, let's get to the kind of quick recap of just how my life at PAX Unplugged was. And yes, the first lesson is absolutely going to be pace yourself if you're going to go to a board game convention, both in how many games you're picking up, as well as just the day-to-day, making sure you eat enough, making sure you drink enough water, just meandering through, making sure that you take care of yourself from beginning to end, because they can be long days, especially if you are like some of the people out there that are at the convention hall till like midnight. Certainly, the key learning here was we went around and did our rounds, my wife and I, Jenna, and pretty much every time we came across something new that we weren't sure we were ever going to see at our own board game store back here at home, we said, yeah, let's do it. It is December, money doesn't exist on this trip, and we're just going to pick things up if we have a good gut feeling about them. And as you can see, we certainly did that. What I took for granted was that Saturday, I ended up having a bunch of meetings with publishers who also kind of pushed me in the direction, whether it was free review copies or just purchasing the games myself. Yeah, I came away with more than I expected, knowing full well that I had a full suitcase waiting for me already at the hotel room. We made it work, of course, but yeah, just know going in that you're going to come away probably with more games than you think you're going to. And with that said, certainly pace yourself, because while you can have a great day on day 1, you never know what's going to happen on days 2 and 3. So please do keep that in mind. Then there are the kind of logistical things that might be a little bit more specific to PAX. I don't know how these work at the other board game conventions until I eventually make my way there. But it was, little things like making sure you pick the right time to go grab your badge. Now, I was quite frankly, to toot my own horn, very smart. We flew in the Thursday before the Friday opening day of the convention, and we made the call. Okay, we kind of took the train right into Reading Station, I think it's called, and then what we ended up doing was going right to the convention center before we even got to our hotel, and went and picked up our badges. Thankfully, this was closer to the end of the day. Shout out to the convention staff that stuck around right until the last kind of possible moment when people could pick up their badges, because we pretty much walked right through the line and ended up grabbing our badges really quickly. I don't know how the experience was picking up your badge day of, but certainly something you want to try and do early, which is get that badge early. Now, everyone and the convention staff, speaking of, did kind of drive everyone to the front entrance on Broad Street. We did that first day, and we did end up waiting in the line a little bit, but there is that sneaky side entrance. I want to say it's, kind of close to Market Street, where you can kind of go in where the train station is as well, and you can go right up the stairs. After the kind of first moment where I entered in through the main entrance, I pretty much went the other direction every single time. I think the convention staff tell you that it's supposed to be for like media and content creators and, like kind of exhibition staff as well. It's kind of a quicker way for them to get in. But full disclosure, I had just a regular 3-day badge this weekend, so I pretty much just went through and didn't run into any issues. So another thing to definitely keep in mind there. And of course, you're always going to come away with maybe some regrets or things you would have done differently. Quite frankly, and this is kind of my apologies to all the people that I did meet and maybe didn't see enough of over the weekend. I think if you're going to go to one of these things, you have to do a good job of kind of putting yourself out there and making yourself a little bit vulnerable socially, to be perfectly honest. I had the pleasure of, again, not going as a member of the media myself this time around. I would definitely do that probably differently, but did have the pleasure of meeting a lot of other people who are in that space. And there are a ton of events and things going on, whether you are a content creator or whether you are just a general member of the public. There's no shortage of things to do throughout the entire day. And what I failed to kind of do throughout the entire weekend is actually sit down and play games. And of course, also find people to play games with. You know what? Got kind of cold feet. The kind of social awkwardness kind of came through in full swing. That lack of confidence rung through too. And so I had a really tough time doing anything beyond kind of going from booth to booth, seeing people that are clearly meant to be there and supposed to be there, and not maybe venturing out to find a looking for gamers table in the just general play hall. Maybe going to some of the things that I was kind of invited to at night. Just didn't work up the courage to bite the bullet and kind of put myself out there and go to it. Went to bed a little bit on the earlier side than maybe I should have if I'm trying to take full advantage of the full weekend. So with that being said, I do want to apologize to all the people that I did see, but maybe didn't see enough. Besides the quick conversations that we had on the first breakfast, on the first morning, to beyond kind of seeing each other in the hallway, I could have done a better job of just like not being a little wuss and just kind of going out to these things, kind of turning my social battery on and trying something new and introducing myself maybe to some new people as well. What you're going to get out of these conventions is very much conducive to what you put into them. So I am sure if I had made a little bit more of an effort or kind of gotten over that kind of mental block of throwing myself out there and introducing myself to new people, I would have probably played a lot more games than I thought I was going to or ended up playing. So next time, you know what? Come up to me, say hi, approach yourself, invite me to a game, because maybe I do need a little bit of a push, but I am also going to do a better job of kind of putting myself out there and trying to get some games actually to the table rather than just kind of meandering from one end of the exhibition hall to the other. Next time I'll be better, I promise. But with that, let's get into the games, shall we? There are, as you saw, a lot to go through, so we're going to try and not ramble, give that quick overview, why they kind of attracted us, and then move on to the next one. And we're going to start by our visit to the Tabletop Tycoon booth, where we got ourselves a copy of Everdell Duo. Obviously, the kind of two-player version of Everdell. This is, frankly, a game that I play mostly at 2 players anyways with my wife. We both love it. It's one of our favorites. And so just Everdell Duo, the 2-player kind of streamlined version in 30 minutes, just really appealed to us, obviously. Just kind of some of the things that make it a little bit tighter, maybe a little bit more of a tug-of-war sort of like closer experience. That is really really just what attracted us to Everdell Duo. Would certainly, of course, not get rid of our copy. I think just the production value in and of itself makes it worth just holding on to. But I'm really curious to see how the game kind of streamlined for 2 players is going to go. Next, we went to the Smirk and Dagger booth. Now, Smirk and Dagger is not a company I've had the chance to really play any of their games from, but I am really excited about the 2 titles that we picked up. Let's start with the older one. The Night Cage is a cooperative, kind of spoopy game, perfect for Halloween, where you are going to be working together to try and find the keys to unlock this awful kind of cavernous dungeon that you are trapped in. There's going to be monsters along the way, and what makes this game interesting is that you're going to be revealing tiles that kind of display the path and the options that you can go through, but because it's so dark in there, you can never only ever see kind of the path that is directly ahead of you on either of the sides of you, and beyond that, there's nothingness. You have to try and meander and make your way through to kind of unveil new parts of the tunnel that are going to be changing as you go. Of course, trying to avoid monsters, searching for those keys frantically so that you can all come together and then escape. I've been looking for a while for a kind of new Halloween cooperative game. Horrified is still great, but we have really played it a lot, so we're kind of looking for something new, and frankly, this is a little bit spoopier from the looks of it, so really excited to try the Night Cage. And then Hi-Fi is going to be the first of a few kind of music-themed games. I feel like the board gaming world needs to start gravitating more towards it, and we're already starting to see it with a few titles, including Hi-Fi. That music theme is just ripe for kind of diving in because it's so like math-focused, and there's so many ties in of math into music, so that goes hand in hand with kind of strategy and board games. In Hi-Fi, you are basically competing recording artists that are and producers who are trying to complete the B-side of a record, and you're going to be doing that by kind of drafting different parts of the song that different musicians have recorded and putting it out onto a track. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff going on here in terms of little bonus points that you're going to be earning along the way and bonus moves to kind of get around it, but the big draw to this game is, of course, the action selection mechanism where you're actually going to be rotating a record kind of at the top, and the board actually turns into a record player sort of thing, and the different parts of a record display different actions. So you're going to kind of shift it and move it around and then choose the actions on that kind of rondelle mechanism there. This is the first game that we've gotten at PAX that we have been able to get to the table. I had a pretty solid first experience with it, so certainly excited to dive into it even more and get some more plays in before I give you my full thoughts. Now, I'm going to try and do my best to call out when I was gifted a game or provided a game for review, for especially on my TikTok channel, and I have to shout out Left Justified Studio for giving me a very generous welcome package with respect to everything that you see here. We have Jewels for the Emperor Penguin, we have Lumberjacks with rocket launchers, and then we have kind of a big deal with some supplementary kind of expansion modules. More on why just the expansion is right here. My first morning of PAX, I was actually invited to Left Justified Studios Media Breakfast at IHOP. This video is not sponsored by IHOP, and it was really cool. Essentially got to see all of the people that I have kind of grown to admire, especially in the TikTok space and the short form video content space, as well as made some new friends and met some new people. Again, shout out to Tabletop Vibes for being so cool and welcoming and kind of welcoming me into their play group. At the breakfast, we actually ended up getting a game of Lumberjacks with rocket launchers in. This is super cool. It's a draw a card, play a card game where you are basically going to be putting down rockets so that they face either of your opponents. These rocket cards will face either of your opponents, and then there are other cards that are kind of going to launch the rockets around the table so that they're pointing at other people, and yes, they can ultimately come back around and point at you. If a player ever kind of has at least 3 rockets in front of them when somebody plays a kind of blast off card that shoots all the rockets, well, then they're going to explode and be out of the game. Really liked this little first game, and I think it's a testament to the fact that we were in an IHOP. There was a lot going on, a lot of stimulus, but everyone was really able to sit down and enjoy the game despite there being a lot going on. So really excited to fully play this one. We were also there because Grant Lyon and Danny Standring have also kind of contributed and worked on a game called I'm Kind of a Big Deal, which is a party game where you're essentially going to be working to exaggerate or the opposite of exaggerate, under-exaggerate, certain facts about yourself or aspects of your life. You're going to secretly get a little token that displays exactly how much or how little you have to exaggerate a fact about yourself. And then everyone can kind of grill you with questions about whether you are really good at this thing or whether you can do this certain activity or hobby or skill. And then ultimately, everyone will take a gauge and a guess at how much you have exaggerated. And if you fool everyone, I'm pretty sure you get some points. Now, this is one of the expansion packs for the game. There wasn't enough room to fit everything on the way home. So I do have the base game. The base game is just very much right here. So I'll give a little shout out to the components. You have your kind of score sheet, kind of a big deal scorecard in terms of how much you have exaggerated or not. Of course, all of the cards, the different kind of exaggeration level tokens. Really, again, truly can't thank them enough for sending me all this stuff. I just had to make room for everything. So rest assured, I will put the actual box art somewhere on here so that you know what it's working with, but have kept the game. Very excited to play it. And finally, Jewels for the Emperor Penguin. I think this is kind of one of their bigger box games out of everything the Left Justified Studio has offered. Frankly, don't know as much about this one, but really excited to dive in. Penguins, another theme that is really popping up a bunch, where I believe you're going to be doing a combination of dice rolling, and then you're kind of advancing kind of Frogger style up to different icebergs along the way, picking up resources and jewels, of course, which is the name of the game. So again, overall, can't thank Left Justified Studio enough for everything that they've sent here, and it was very kind of them to kind of put that package together, and I can't wait to get these all to the table. Next, this game was on my most anticipated games to check out at PAX list, and sure enough, I was wowed by it just enough so that I ended up buying it. This is Rock Hard 1977. This was easily the talk of the town at Gen Con earlier this year. I find that maybe the hype has kind of died down once people have gotten this to the table, but I want to be the judge on whether it has the staying power for me. For me, this is all about the theme. It is a worker placement game, but you are playing as a budding rock star trying to juggle keeping a day job and trying to become a kind of a legendary rock icon at night. Basically building up enough money and time so that you can book bigger and bigger shows. The whole kind of candy addiction thing is a bit of a controversy here, but honestly, I'm not bothered by it too much. Really excited to kind of live out a kind of rock star simulation, dream, fantasy with this game. Really excited to get it to the table. And again, maybe I can bring the hype back depending on whether I have a good experience with it or not. Next, we are wandering around trying to check out the bigger booths, of course, but came across a little booth called Post Curious. It was off to the side a little bit, hadn't heard of them before, but if you know anything about me, you know that Jenna, my wife, and I really enjoy puzzly kind of mystery solving, kind of escape room style board games and boxes, ones that you kind of work through, and then once you're done, you kind of set it aside and it's a one-off sort of situation. Post Curious not only had a whole sweeping group of different kind of puzzly type board games out there, it had some of the best art and production quality I think I've ever seen. I'm really curious. This was kind of the one they recommended that you get first, the introductory level game. This is the Morrison Game Factory. They call it a puzzle tale, which is interesting. This is kind of their most approachable one where it's themed, frankly, very much along and around board games. Some of their more advanced ones get into kind of Norse mythology and kind of fantastical worlds. And again, if you want to look them up, the art is absolutely gorgeous. So I did end up buying one of them, wanted to support them, wanted to see what this is all about. And I'm really curious to see how all of this goes because, again, this type of game is right up our alley as a kind of Sunday afternoon activity, especially in the winter. So jury's still out on this one, but we will see. Then I got to have, frankly, probably my biggest fandom moment that I had at the entire convention. Besides walking past Elizabeth Hargrave in the hallway at one point, with her just having the most pleasant, happiest smile ever on a human I've ever seen, I also went to the Fowers Games booth and had a full-on conversation with designer Tim Fowers. And at the end of the day, he was a good enough salesman that we picked up a game called Now Boarding. Now, a little bit of background on me. This household loves games like Paperback. We love games like Burgle Bros 2. All of those kind of coming with this very distinct, very kind of postmodern art style, along with just really solid gameplay that is well thought out and, frankly, in my opinion, pretty streamlined. So very curious to see how that translates to now boarding, a game where you are essentially being an air traffic controller trying to manage all of the different planes that are coming in and out of different airports in different cities across the US. Again, don't know much more beyond that besides the fact that Jenna was really jazzed about it. Tim Fowers did a great job in kind of giving us a full overview of all of the games that he had at his disposal. Sorry I couldn't say hi to Sky on the marketing team. He wasn't there at the booth. Congrats on your new baby. But beyond that, just really excited that we could kind of support and pick up a game and buy a game from a smaller publisher that we are just frankly really big fans of. Really cool moment. Then back to the big guys, we went to Arcane Wonders because I knew there was a game there that I think is going to be the hit of my Christmas family get-together this year on both sides of the family, and that's going to be a little game called Edo. We were able to sit down with Bree, the marketing manager at Arcane Wonders, and actually have a full playthrough. This just hit exactly the note that I wanted to, so I bought a copy right after we finished everything up there. Really glad I did because this apparently sold out at PAX Unplugged, so very, very cool that we got it. Essentially, this is kind of a game like The Mind or The Game, where you are going to have numbers from 0 to 100 on cards. You're going to be secretly dealt one card and you have to keep the number to yourself. And then you're going to be given a category or a question like, things that are tall or the biggest. So on the 0 scale, you have very, very small. On the 100 scale, you have very, very big. And you have to look at your number and decide, what clue am I going to give that kind of evokes and lets people know exactly what number I have and where it is going to fit along the scale? You're all going to be working together to secretly kind of give your clues and put it where you think it belongs, and then you'll do the big reveal to see how right you were. Again, a lot of opportunity here for creativity, funny moments, funny clues around the table, especially with family. It's a very approachable game, so that is why I think we're going to keep talking about Edo for years to come as one of those kind of quintessential party games that belongs at your table. More to come on this one as well. It was about that time that Jenna was getting a little bit tired, and then so she was going to kind of go off and let me continue kind of wandering the halls, wandering the booths, and I got some more stuff. So number one, I picked up a game that isn't quite very characteristic of me. This is Heroes of Barcadia, and it is a drinking game. Now, again, like I said, not necessarily a vein of gaming that I like to partake in. We all know my opinions about Cards Against Humanity, but with that being said, my brother-in-law saw this and was like, this looks super cool. And honestly, I looked at it and I had to agree with him. This is a dungeon crawling game where you are going to fill your cup with a beverage of your choice, and the cup has different HP values going all the way from 0 up to I think 100. And you're going to be exploring the dungeon. Basically, every time you come across a new monster, you have to try and defeat it. If you don't, they're going to deal a certain amount of HP to you. And how do you reflect that and figure out how much you take? Well, you're going to take a bit of your drink and it's going to whittle down closer and closer to 0. A really interesting, kind of unique, ingenuous, in my mind, kind of take on a dungeon crawler. By no means are we going to have a ton of strategy here. You're also working competitively. The first to get to the treasure and then defeat the final boss wins. I am very curious about how this is going to go. I think the art is very cute, stylish, and honestly, shout out to the guys who made Heroes of Barcadia. They sponsored the entire bar section of PAX Unplugged, which I think is just a really smart, ingenious move in and of itself. So stay tuned for Heroes of Barcadia. Again, not the type of game I normally get, but I do want to give it a shot. And then I took a quick little hop over to the Hachette booth. Hachette, a bunch of publishers kind of under their purview, including Scorpion Mask, who has possibly, of course, one of the biggest games of the year that won the Spiel. Sky Team. And while I was at the booth, I had to pick out the first expansion for Sky Team called Turbulence. Just frankly, just more scenarios and situations and mechanics included in this little pack that slide very easily into the original Sky Team box. 20 new scenarios, in fact. We haven't even worked our way all the way through. We're just getting to the red, really difficult scenarios in our playthroughs, but needless to say, we're not going to be putting Sky Team away anytime soon. And then the kind of promotion that they had going on is that if you got that, you also got thrown in a little sample pack of their also kind of escape room mystery style game Suspect. So plenty more to see there. I love kind of comparing and contrasting those different escape roomy mystery solving systems. So we will see what Suspects has in store and how it kind of interacts or compares to some of the others that are in our favorites. And then before the end of day one, I got to stop by the Fight in a Box booth, where my good friend Seppi, who's had me on some of his lives before, definitely give him a follow on TikTok and Instagram if you have it. He sat me down for a full first mission run through of Conquest Princess, which was an absolute delight. I've been following him along and kind of heard him talking about developing this game for a long amount of time, and so it was a pleasure to finally sit down and play with him. And yes, he did gift me a copy of Conquest Princess to try out. A very generous gift, because look how thick this box is. Conquest Princess is essentially like a little bit of Sailor Moon vibes, taking place in an intergalactic spaceship. You're working together through a ton of missions, essentially using the power of fashion to defeat your enemies. It has a kind of action selection system where you're kind of choosing what you're going to try and do on each of your turns using 4 individual action cubes, and you're going to be using it to defeat baddies, perform actions that work towards completing the mission, and then you also are trying to kind of impose and keep at bay this kind of Space Invader style descending fleet of monsters and enemy ships that are coming at you. Again, very charmed by this one. Gonna have to do a full playthrough and kind of test everything out to see exactly all of that has in store, but can't thank Fight in a Box, and of course especially Seppi, enough for taking the time to sit down with me despite him almost losing his voice just on day one, and of course again providing a copy for review. So again, more on Conquest Princess later. And we're in the home stretch, because day 2 was pretty much made up of a bunch of meetings. Maybe before I get to the games that I ended up coming away with on day 2, we'll quickly talk about some of the other things that I'm really excited about based on some of the meetings that I had. Had a meeting with Flat River Group, again, own a ton of publishers. Danny and Matt are all amazing people, and they have been very kind to me over the last couple of years that I've been doing this. And they sat me down for essentially what was a few quick turns of one of their new games, Zenith. This is either a 1v1 or a 2v2 tug of war space-themed game, where you're going to essentially be playing down cards that have multi-use effects to kind of have these different kind of tokens of influence move back towards your side of the table. The trick is that if you're playing in that 2 versus 2 game, which is what I did, one person is only going to be able to kind of manipulate one half of the board, and the other person, your partner, is only going to be able to manipulate the other half. So you have some considerations there on what cards you're going to use to kind of move things over on your side versus which ones you aren't going to frankly be able to use to manipulate those tug of war triggers, and instead use them for some of the other actions on the board. This was one that didn't necessarily catch my eye initially, but really impressed by it and really excited to maybe just play around and see what else was what there. Other visits to the booth, Up Games sat me down, ended up playing through a full game of Floristry, which is going to be their first game that comes out in March, straight to retail. A very cute Dutch auction style game, not Duction, Dutch auction, which is of course values of different tokens that you're going to be able to collect that have different flowers on them. They're going to get cheaper as you go, and you have to decide when you want to be kind of first past the post to get first crack at those tokens, taking them to kind of add and try and group similar flowers together. Really excited about that one. Keep an eye out for that. I think it's going to be a pretty good quick like 10-15 minute game hit, and that is only for 2 players, keep in mind. Last other meeting before I get into some others was also with Cosmos. Have to give a shout out to Court, who you could tell was very busy over the last 48 hours, had a lot going on, but still took the time to take me through all of the games that they were offering and some of their newer titles. Highlights for me were certainly The Gang, which is again another game that has been all the rage at like Gen Con, PAX Unplugged as well, where it is essentially the crew with poker hands. You're going to be trying to get the best combination or best poker hand possible, and communicating with your teammates to try and figure out how your poker hand ranks among all others. And I can't really say anything beyond that. There were some other kind of secret things that they told us about that I'm not even allowed to say yet, but Cosmos, whatever that thing was that you said that I'm not allowed to say, that was also a highlight, so do take solace in that. But on day 2, I started my day visiting the CGE booth, and they gave me a full rundown of all of their games. Very lovely meeting and very lovely group over there. Of course, the big one, and I think the one that was the hit of Spiel, was SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. I am happy to say that I've sat down. I have learned the game, but I have not yet played it. It took me a good kind of 2 hours to set everything up, kind of learn, manipulate around all the different tokens and figure it out, but I am really jazzed and really excited to get this to the table. You are going to be sending out probes in a rotating solar system board to try and gather up data and traces of intelligent life on different planets. And then ultimately, 2 of those kind of extraterrestrial life forms are going to reveal, and they have their own little kind of side quests, side missions, side little mini games that they introduce into the game, and those change from play session to play session. So needless to say, really excited about this one. Thank you to CGE for gifting me this game for review. Really excited to get it to the table and just see everything it has to offer and all the hype that has been going for it. They also threw in a game from one of their kind of publishing partner, which is, I'm going to hopefully say this right, Mui. This is a trick-taking game, and you have to play it with at least 3 players, as most trick-taking games often do. What's kind of unique about this is that each round, 2 of the players that you're playing with kind of get to dictate how Trump is going to go, and some of the specific rules for that round are kind of set. And then from there, you have to, basically, it's a standard trick-taking game, so you play a suit and you have to match it. But if I'm not mistaken in how this was kind of explained to me, you can match the suit, or Uno style, you can also match the color, the number rather, that you're playing down and putting down. So a little bit of flexibility there and a bit of a twist, as we so often see with these newer trick-taking games. So very curious to get this one to the table too. Thanks again to CGE for having and giving me one of the best meetings of the entire weekend. Next, I went to North Star Game Studios booth, where I had a great sit down with Ross on their team. Lovely group of guys, lovely guy himself, Ross. Their big release this year is Nature, which is their kind of latest iteration or offshoot of their Evolution series, a game series that I definitely want to try and play. Nature is essentially you kind of building up your traits, and what's unique about this compared to some of the other Evolution games is it's a little bit more forgiving. There are going to be predators out there that could kind of disrupt or kind of destroy your species that you have been building up and creating, but they've added some rules to Nature so that, again, you're a little less punished when that does happen, so a little bit of a friendlier overall experience. What's also cool about it is it has a bunch of different kind of modules or suggested groups of animals and traits to put together, and you can essentially mix and match those to kind of create the unique game experience that you want to have. So definitely consider Nature. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for it myself. He did provide me a copy of Sacred Valley for review, North Star Games did. This is playing off a very specific kind of practice that was happening in the Inca Empire, where there were these different kind of layers of different farmland and areas where you could essentially grow any number of different plants that you wanted. It was a very diverse ecosystem that allowed for that kind of combination of different fruits, vegetables, etc. to be grown. And that's essentially what you're going to be doing here. You're going to be laying out tiles of different vegetables and fruits, trying to group vegetables and fruits together. And there is a bit of this kind of market manipulation system going on the side that is going to impact just when exactly you want to cash in all of your wares and your kind of crops to harvest. Very cool, very interesting. I had my game group in mind, my weekly game group, when I agreed to take this on. I think there's some specific people there that are going to really appreciate this game. There is enough going on that it is certainly a strategy game, but also a pretty straightforward system. So that is kind of a sweet spot that a lot of us like to experience at game night. So very excited, and thanks again to North Star Game Studio for providing it to me for review. Finally, I think this is going to be my wife Jenna's game of the convention. We walked by Botany. I'm just feeling the embossing right here, and it feels so nice. We walked by Botany, and frankly, the art style, that kind of old world 19th century map mixed with the very encyclopedia style flowers and art gravitated towards us. And then once we got a sense of kind of how the game worked, we were very much in and and down to try it out. So we did purchase this ourselves from, I believe, 8 Games. Very cool kind of theme. My wife is an absolute plant mom right now. She controls and takes care of all the plants in the house. So needless to say, this was a little bit maybe of me humoring her, or maybe letting her take this on and try it out and really pick out a game that was specifically for her. That's not to say I'm not excited to. Really looking forward to trying this out and seeing what Botany has to offer. Oh my god, I did it. Okay, that is all of the games that I got at PAX Unplugged. That's not to also include all of the games that I have still on my shelf that need to be reviewed. So with that being said, I think we'll cut the video off here and I'm going to go play some and learn some more. Thank you so much if you stuck all the way through. Again, please consider subscribing to Get This Game, where we are continuing to pump out specific reviews, kind of roundups. We like to do deeper dives on certain new releases and kind of talk a little bit more about what makes them tick and why that's great for you as a gamer. Please consider subscribing. Leave a comment of if you were at PAX Unplugged, what did you pick up? What do you want to see me cover more? Which of these games you want to see come out first? And of course, again, consider following me on TikTok at Get This Game and Instagram at Get This Board Game. And of course, as always, thank you for playing with me, and we'll see you next time.